I would like to speak to the topic of what it means to be a man in modern society today, and particularly in the West, and what it means to be a father. Now, I hate to say this, but I'm sharing some of these thoughts almost from a sad place. It's not my and in my nature um, to be concerned with affairs of other people. For example, I don't have a television, I don't watch the news, but every now and then, I will either be sent a link via a social media page. And a few minutes ago, I came across what I think personally is the most despicable dishonor a child can give a father. I'm not surprised by the contents because these things were foreshadowed. These behaviors were predicted many, many years ago. But the voices that predicted such behaviors and actions were dismissed. I have provided a link in the description section of this video so that you can see for yourself. But let me summarize what I saw, I guess, to set the context of this conversation. It's a statement, it's a speech given by a young woman at her father's funeral. I have never heard of such dishonor in my entire life. Now, let me say a few things. I don't care what your father did and who your father is or who your father was. He is, or he was, your father. We show honor to fathers not because they are deserving of honor. We show honor to fathers and mothers because honor is deserved. Several people go through several traumas, several issues as a result of having bad parents. I am not trying to dismiss the pain, the suffering that you may have suffered in the hands of a parent or a loved one. We show honor to fathers and mothers because it's a commandment. Honor your father and honor your mother so that your days may be long and fruitful, and so that you will find success. It's a condition of life. If you had an experience with a father or a mother, and if the say parents were not the best role models, the best guardians, let's assume they did things to you that broke your heart. You deserve to have had better parents. The way you react to people when they react to you shows your character. The way they respond or react to you shows their character. If a parent has been or has fallen short of their duties, they have revealed their character. Yours has to be always intact. You increase your honor as the requirement for honor decreases to other people's eyes. In other words, you show more honor to a father who was abusive, a father who committed incest, a father who was aggressive, a father who was not loving, a father who was not kind towards you. It's an inverse approach. You give more honor because they did not show you honor. You do not lower yourself to the same level as their poor behavior, should that exist. The same applies to a mother. You increase your honor, the more broken your mother is. You don't decrease your honor, and you do not disrespect the position of fatherhood and motherhood publicly. Now, this video, if you've seen it, is a young girl born of a white man, I imagine, obviously based on how she describes her father, using all the terminologies that we hear in society today, the idiotic terminologies. But she has a black mother, so she's a mixed race child. I have used her photograph as an avatar or as a screen page for this video, so you can see that what we are dealing with is brokenness. I have no intention of dwelling on a funeral or of someone, or eulogy of someone I do not know. Whatever his shortcomings may have been, his evils, his brokenness, you wish him well at death. You show honor by not visiting his burial, not appearing, but in other words, saying, may he rest in peace. Now let me take today's session a step further. I have said, and I still hold to that position, and I've said that many times, that there is no benefit of marriage to mother men. One of the core reasons for that is I consider myself the last of the Generation X. And if you were raised or born in a different country, particularly in the East, and certainly not in the West, or if you were born and raised in the South, born and raised in parts of Africa, born and raised in the Caribbeans, in parts of Oriental Asia, in India, there is a reverence that you have for authority. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, I met with a couple, a mixed race couple. He was from Africa, a part of Africa that I cannot recall, but it was the first time that I had met someone from that country, and she was Anglo-Saxon English. He made a statement that I thought was profound. We had asked them whether they wanted to have children or had plans, and he said that he was unlikely to have kids and tentative about the decision because, having migrated to England, his observation about kids in the West was very dire. That kids that were born to a free society, in wealth, with abundance, showed more dishonor than kids who were born in poverty. that his experience of African kids was that they were more humble, they were more happy, they were more honorable, despite having nothing. And those in the West were more dishonoring, arrogant, entitled, ignorant, despite being born amongst the most important and with the most important gifts that anyone could have. And his concern was whether his kids, if he had some in the West, would behave in the same way. It wasn't the first time that someone had said such a thing. Now, you might be listening and thinking, why would that concern you as a father? After all, it is your responsibility to ensure that the kid is raised with the right values and morals. He was right. The reason he is right is because we make the mistake of thinking that the parents raise the children. Not so. The parents play a part in the raising of a children or of a child. However, a child is primarily raised by the peer group, the social group, the community, the network of people around. If you have two parents and both work, and if you imagine that most people are average, and therefore one or both parents might work two jobs. Parents spend very little time with their kids. They outsource that responsibility to the schools in good faith and with the hope that the children are being taught good morals, ethics, values. Unfortunately, in the modern West today, that is not the case. You send your kids to school and they come back your enemies because most of them have been brainwashed by the liberals, the feminists, the broken people in society, people who have selected ideologies that are so far-reaching, people who see themselves as victims, people who are not happy, people who believe that they are supposed to be confused in their sexual orientations, people who are broken. I hold the people responsible for this, and I have named them. What liberalism has done since the 1960s to the West cannot be overstated or understated. What the womanist feminist movement and the Marxist movement, the ideology of victim and oppressor, of hatred for men, cannot be overstated. It won't be understated either. What the schools have done to young kids, a soft, fragile mind, taking ideologies that are wrong and converting these kids to activists, so much so that you can hate your father even at his death, his shortcomings notwithstanding. As soon as I saw the message and I saw the link, I sent it to a few close friends. And I would share with you what I said in the message. The message I included was as follows. To those who want to have kids, homeschooling could be one of the best investments anyone can make in the modern West. Gone are the days when you can depend on good teachers, neutral teachers, non-ideological teachers to raise your kids. The idea that you can, and here's perhaps one of the worst things I can say, It takes about 18 years to monetize all of the investment a parent pours into a child, because human beings, unlike all other animal life forms, we take a long time to get it. A few minutes after the wildebeest is born, it has to run with the pack. It has to start running from the lions. It has to get moving. Instinct in the genetic code causes it to move. Human beings, we have a mind, we have emotions, we have an intellect, but we do not develop that intellect until about 18. We can't reason deductively or inductively until much later in life. And so until about 18 years, you're dependent on your parents. All of that love and sacrifice, some you've seen and some you haven't seen, wasted. All of that kindness thrown down the drain. Why? Because your children have been brainwashed by the school system in the West. There's a saying that image is everything. I can see a picture of you and I can formulate an opinion. It's not prejudice. Prejudice is to form an opinion before the facts. Your presentation of yourself is your statement to the world about how you perceive yourself. A woman's mannerism and behavior and how she dresses is a statement of what she thinks of herself and what the world should interpret about what she could be before they hear her speak. There's a saying, God judges on the inside, man judges based on the outside. People will judge you when they see you before they hear what you have to say. What you see in this girl's picture is a very tormented, broken woman, a young woman. Woe to the man who chooses her as a spouse. I can say this, and I can say this with conviction, and I can say this with commitment, and I can say this in a prophetic way, without being ashamed. The curses of your father and your father's fathers will be with you even until the third and the fourth generation of your offsprings, should you decide to bring forth future generations. You do not dishonor fathers. A father is the source through which you come into this world. The gatekeeper, the sustainer. Now, I don't care whether your father was in your life or not in your life. Karma works like a bitch. When you show dishonor, it comes back as a curse. And the great books make reference to that. The sins of the father will be visited on the children until the third and even fourth generation. Quite frankly, this girl has a very rough head ahead of her, and I wish her peace. I wish her the peace that surpasses all understanding. I would hope that she will come to her road to Damascus moment. I would hope that whatever trauma that she may have does not break her and does not cause more pain. There is no benefit to men in modern society today getting married, and for many reasons. Modern women these days are a lost cause. Should you want to choose a spouse, I would say if you live in the West, and many months ago, a few years ago, I did a session. I was on Clubhouse, and I listened to a conversation by people who shared my ethnic image. I can tell you this, I have never heard, apparently before I came on stage to speak, someone may have been on stage and he may have said something that the women disagreed with, all of them modern women. With the exception of one woman, as I listened, I have never heard women use so much foul language, speak so poorly about a man, and this man shared the same ethnic image. One of the statements I made in the clubhouse conversation was an observation that I have had amongst men who share my ethnic image, who live in England or live in London. I said, amongst about 9 friends, 9 people that I know, a small anecdotal group, but worthy of noticing for one specific reason, which I hope you would extract from what I shared. I said to the group that I had listened to the tone of their language, the words used in their language, the intensity, the volume of their conversations, all of which was very denigrating of the men. And I said that perhaps I would love to share an observation that I have had amongst friends and acquaintances. The observation was this: of about 9 men who share my ethnic image, who were in relationships, mostly married, some of them in a partnership arrangement, cohabitation, but not officially married, religious or state. I noted that none of them had ever dated, as far as I knew, and as far as I had been able to witness, had ever dated a woman that shared the same ethnic image as me. Most of them lived in London or in other parts of England. All of them were either married to or in relationship with women from the Baltic states, the Slavic states, or Anglo-Saxon women, but very specific Anglo-Saxon women. They had married women who were nothing like those who shared their own ethnic image. The key part of my observation was, I said, that when I asked these men why, there was a consistency in their responses. At the core was they wanted peace. They wanted peace. They wanted serenity and a serene lifestyle. All of these men would fall within what would be considered maybe the top 2% of all earners in England. 2%. So these were men who, on a socio-economic level, were the elite, they were amongst the elite. None of them had selected women who shared their ethnic image. Having listened to the women before I got on stage, I could understand why. The adversarial nature, the combative nature, the lack of honor. And here is how I judge women. I do not judge you by the honor you share and you express to your husband, your partner, your loved one. I judge you by the honor you show to other men. I judge you by the honor you show to men who cannot repay you. I judge you by the honor you show to the dead. It's disgraceful. I diverted from the original conversation. The point I was trying to make is, men, you have to be very selective these days. The worst decision that you can make is to lose with your seed. You need to have discipline. The urge of sex can be so powerful for men that we do not choose carefully who we procreate with. Now, let me deviate and say this so women can understand. When we have sex with you, or when we propose sex to you, we do not do so because we want to have children. We just want sex. Something could go wrong. Usually not from the man's position. We have one form of birth control, women have over 20. A woman is the only person who can choose who is brought to life. They are gatekeepers to their bodies, their womb, and their emotions. Because we have no say in who gets born in the West, it becomes more important to choose who you lay with to ensure that should something go wrong, should your line of defense, which is just one, fail, you do not procreate with the wrong person. Now, you've made a mistake already by being yoked with the wrong person. The last thing you want to do is bring into the world another bastard, or a young lady like the one I described earlier, one who hates you so much that in your funeral, in the midst of everyone, she makes a statement. Now, I should have said, and I realize I hadn't said, what I was stunned by is the fact that no one in the audience stood up and stopped her. And at the end, some people clapped. You can't make this stuff up. You just cannot make it up. And if this is something fake, wonderful. If it's something real, what a tragedy. That you have people in the audience, and there were so many people in the audience, and not one stood up and stopped her from dishonoring the dead. It can only happen in the West. I sit back here and I think in any part of Africa, now Africa is a very diverse continent with different cultures and religions and beliefs and tribes and languages. But I can say this with some level of assurance, that irrespective of where you're from in Africa, this would not have happened. Only in the West can a dead man be dishonored, so much so in his funeral. And what stunned me the most is that she makes it very clear that she intends to use her father's wealth. You hate your father so much, but yes, you will use the wealth he created. Men, we have to become better. And my advice to you is, number one of the most important decisions you would ever make would be who you choose as a spouse. Even more importantly, recognizing that most women do not marry before they carry. An important decision is who you lay with, because all you need is one bastard to slip through and make the world a worse place for people that come way after your time. You have to be careful with your seed. You always have to wear a condom. You have to. I would much rather have, and this is not a nice thing to say, but say it I must. Some weeks ago, speaking with a loved one, I said, it wasn't so much that I disrespect what the feminists were trying to achieve. They wanted equality. I support that. Equality of opportunity, equality under the law, equality of rights. I support all of that. But ideologies sometimes go awry. A broken clock is right twice every day, but we would not use a broken clock to tell the time. There were things about the feminist movement that were good. There are so many more things. If you include all of the derivatives of the feminist movement and what it has produced, the hatred for men, the hatred for everything, the victimhood approach, the Marxist mindset, the refusal to take accountability and responsibility. All of that has really wrecked society. And I said to a loved one, it would have been fine, completely fine, had all of those who supported and subscribed to such an ideology, it would have been fine had they not had any offsprings. You don't like men? Fine. Go live in your own Amazonia. Walk around naked. Don't even cut your hairs. Grow as many beards as you want. Do whatever you want. Have as much sex as you want casually if you choose to. But don't reproduce. The reason being, the same people reproduced, transferred the ideology, but the diluted and poisonous ideology to their offsprings. And this girl in the video was one of such people. Had the Marxist feminists not conceived, it would have taken a few generations and they would have been wiped out with their false, wicked ideology. Our life will continue in the West. What we have found, however, is they reproduced, and they reproduced, and they reproduced. And what we are seeing today amongst the young ones, with gender confusion, people who are depressed all the time, people who are confused, people who are selfish, ignorant, arrogant, entitled, what we are seeing is the foreshadowing of things that were predicted. So as a young man, in closing, be careful out there. Be careful with your seed. Be careful who you lay with. I intend to do a session because I think in many ways part of the confusion is this integration that we have these days amongst sexes and ethnicities. People are not sure about who they are. She certainly has an issue with identity, not accepting the identity of her father, but also not accepting the identity or not being allowed to accept the identity of her mother. So she's confused.